Angus, both Colour Sergeant Taggart and myself obviously know you very well. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your links with the Army Cadet Force, please?
Yeah, so I'm Angus Caddick. I joined the Army Cadets in 2008 in Inverness Company and Inverness Detachment, and stayed until 2013 to launch university.
That's great.
Cool. Angus, why did you join the Army Cadet Force in the first place?
I think it was quite a few reasons I joined. I'd sort of been looking for like a hobby or sports or something to do, and I wasn't picking up anything particularly naturally or well, and sort of struggling a bit at school and all the rest of it. And actually a pal in my class who was in the Army Cadets, and he sort of said, well, come along and try it out. And I come from a bit of a military background, which my parents had served and stuff like that, so they were like, do not join the cadets. And long before season I was the honorary colonel. But I went, and actually I really enjoyed it, and I think my parents then sort of cottoned on. Actually, it's quite a positive organisation, yeah, it was, for me it was something to sort of like focus on and draw me to, and there was loads of different things I could do. I think that was one of the big things that sort of stopped me doing like normal sports, was I just get bored. I've got such a poor attention span. And actually being able to do lots of different stuff and having lots of different routes and methods of sort of working your way through all the stars and the rest of it, the star system, it was yeah, I think it's something that clicked quite naturally with me when I did join. So
you were obviously part of this organisation for a long time. Can you tell us a bit about your career in the ACF and any highlights that you might have?
Yeah, so I joined in 2008 and just went through the star system as one does, and all the annual camps and the rest of it. My first sort of deviation from that was going to Canada, which is probably one of the big highlights for me. So I went on the White Horse camp, which is 6 weeks in the Yukon in Canada, doing at the time it was the Expedition Instructors course. So that was definitely a highlight for me. Went out for 6 weeks and I had an awesome time doing like mountain biking and hill walking, rock climbing, canoeing down the Yukon, which is incredible when you're like 14 or 15, how old I was. And I went back the next year as well, as a sort of the lead sort of British cadet. So that was awesome. Another sort of highlights would just be like the sort of still the events I did, like the TAC competitions and stuff like that, and being put in like these sort of teams and working quite well together and building up for like a goal and stuff like that. And I think that was something maybe that was missing from school and stuff like that. That was really like an important part of the cadets to me.
So it's obviously then with you having your kind of, you know, you find it or you struggle to kind of keep your attention. For you going off to Canada then would be pretty good because you're getting to do lots of different things at different days. So that would be quite good. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and it was like a progressive course. So day one sort of started at the really basic ground levels. You know, this is how you pack your bag, and this is how you maintain a bike, and there was all sorts, and the instructor aspect of it as well. So you actually need to learn how to give lessons and instruct, which is useful. And then even stuff like bear awareness training. So to make sure, you know, when you come across bears in the wild, how you can sort of mitigate the risk and deal with that sort of stuff, which is quite cool and really different from what we do in the UK, obviously.
Do you want to give us a demonstration of how you scare a bear away?
No, it sort of involves you going like that, saying more bear, and hoping it wouldn't eat you. But no, it's stuff like that. It's fantastic. It was, and again, their cadets do things really differently from ours. So they're, I'd say they're probably more strict and more disciplined than our cadets are, in that they were rigid with like room inspections and stuff like that. But they weren't very military, so we didn't do a lot of. There was no sort of exercising or field crafty type stuff. We got a day on the range, which was their only day on the range a year. Firing their sort of military's main weapon system, and yeah, so it was really different and really interesting. And as you say, it was something different every day, culminating in an 18-day expedition, which was about sort of 5 days of canoeing, a day on a rock face, 5 days walking, a day at doing like a sort of community service type thing, and then another 5 days mountain biking. Not necessarily in that order, but so it was yeah, it was really exciting. It was really good, really exciting stuff. So yeah, kept me occupied.
Yeah, what an opportunity.
Definitely.
And I guess, did you, so obviously from going to White Horse, did you come away with any qualifications for that, or was it just like kind of life experience?
So I got, yeah, the problem was because it was a Canadian qualification, it didn't really come across. Okay. I got, I think I got my 2 or 3 star ticked off, or elements of it ticked off for that. and I got my silver Duke of Edinburgh from that as well. So it counted as an expedition. So I did get that across, which was good. I mean, going back the second time, again, I think I got a few things on the sort of 3-star, 2-star syllabus at the time ticked off, which was really good. But no official qualifications.
Did you get a badge?
I did. I got loads of badges. It was exciting, yeah.
So you're being very modest here. You've not mentioned the fact that you are one of the champion cadets in the UK. You were Cadet RSM. You've obviously had an extensive career with this organisation. Do you have any advice that you'd offer to the cadets?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of main bit of advice that I would give is you just go for it. There's loads of opportunities out there, like Cadet, Canada, and Master Cadet course and Champion Cadet, and loads of different exchanges and everything you can do. And if you find out about it, you're interested, I would just sort of go for it. I found this out quite early. I think one of the main takeaways taken away from cadets was you just put yourself forward for things. So I remember the first time there was some sort of cadet tack competition and I was brand new in the door and I went, well, that looks really cool actually. I'd quite like to do it. And no sort of self-confidence to be able to actually go forward and do it. And someone was like, well, just say you want to do it and you'll swap for it and you'll go running and get fit. And I went, okay. And then funny enough, got picked for that. And that sort of then started the ball of, well, if I've gone for that, maybe I can try for this. And so, yeah, you can just go for it. And sometimes you get lucky. I remember going to Canada. I wasn't necessarily picked from a large pool of people to go. I was put forward by the battalion and was one other individual put forward for it from the whole of Scotland. And so we both got picked. It wasn't a process of elimination. It was so easy. So, I think if more people know about it, more people want to go for it, then that's even better if you get more people doing it. And the same with Champion Cadet. I thought, never in a million years am I even going to get invited to this, never mind win it. And then I was like, well, I'll turn up because I've been invited, and turned up, and I got incredibly lucky as well. A lot comes into a lot of it, but I think, yeah, just going for it. And that being said, you're not always going to succeed. There's lots of things that you've ended up, especially since cadets, putting my sort of hand to that I failed miserably at. And that's absolutely fine, because as long as you can learn from that and you're sort of gaining from it, you can move forwards. But I think that took the cadets to teach me that, because certainly at school there wasn't like space for that. It was like, if you fail this exam or you fail this prelim, it's not like, oh well, I've learned quite a lot from that. It's just like, oh, I failed this exam, now I can't do X, Y, Z. Yeah. But I think the cadets gives you that opportunity, that like controlled failure. Yeah. And not always pulling it off, but actually you learn far more that way than you do if you smashed it.
Yeah.
Really good
Angus,
advice,
can I just ask you, would you mind maybe outlining some of the things you had to do in Champion Cadet? I know there are a couple of current cadets that aspire to go down to that competition, so I think it'd be great for them to hear a bit about it.
Yeah, I think it was 2 or 3 days I went down for, and started off with like a fitness test, which at the time was the same as the Army's fitness test, which was just a 1.5 mile run and push-ups and sit-ups. There was a bunch of sort of theory tests and knowledge tests. We then went on exercise, and there was sort of individual, like a stalk, and also some section attacks and stuff like that. And there was a navigation test as well, so a day nav and a night nav. And that's where I got really lucky, because I just bumped into someone who was walking his dog in the middle of the night and sort of said, where am I going? Pointed out where I was. Which actually would not have been Champion Cadet if I bumped into this blue. But no, yeah, so it's just stuff like that. And then there was meant to be a shooting competition, but they didn't have the ammunition was faulty or something. And there was a drill competition, and it was all just assessed, and it was just a points basis. And at the end, they came up with it. So yeah, if you get an opportunity to go, right, if there's any cadets to do it, absolutely go, because you never know. I mean, I was rubbish at shooting. I wasn't particularly good at nav, and I managed to bump into someone on the nav, and the shooting got cancelled. So anything.
Yeah, the luck of the Irish.
Yeah.
Extremely lucky. Angus, you're talking a lot about your cadet career. Could you tell us just a little bit about your career now? So once you left cadets, where is your kind of life?
Yes. So I left cadets in 2013 and went to University of Aberdeen. And again, when we talk about trying and failing, I applied for 5 different universities and got rejected by 4. So I had to go to Aberdeen. But it was, it turned out absolutely for the best. So I went to Aberdeen, joined the OTC there. which was great. Spent a year there. I then transferred into the Army Reserve, was a soldier for about 3 years, which was great. All the time doing my degree. I then graduated, went to Sandhurst to do the reserve, the short course at Sandhurst. So became a reserve officer with 7th Line, Royal Regiment Scotland. And I carried on at university to masters. So when I finished that masters, I went travelling, as you do. Blew all the money I'd saved from working with the army for about 4 months, and then I went to regular Sandhurst on the 5th of May last year, so a year ago 2 days, and did the regular commissioning course. So we commissioned about 5 weeks ago at a sort of small ceremony, obviously because of COVID-19, and commissioned out there into the parachute regiment. So I'm now waiting to start my training with the parachute regiment, which fingers crossed should be starting about 3 weeks.
And what does that training entail, just out of interest?
Yeah, so what it involves is is twofold. It's the platoon commander's battle force in Brecon, which is about 3 months, and all arms pre-parachute selection, which is commonly referred to as P Company. Which for parachute regiment officers is about 3.5 weeks, but plus any build-up they can get in beforehand. So once I've done those 2 courses, I'll then be able to report to the battalion sort of properly, and then get parachute jumps in, and then be sort of fully qualified, good to go. And then who knows after that, whatever jobs come up.
So you've obviously chosen to stay in the military. You followed a career with the army. Were there any transferable skills that you learned throughout your time in the ACF that you've maybe taken with you into later life? Yeah,
definitely. I think big one was like communication, to be able to sort of chat to people. So I wasn't particularly good at anything really before I joined the cadets. I was a bit of a slow starter. But actually going to cadets and meeting lots of different people who from lots of different walks of life was really important. I think that served me really well, especially going to Canada, meeting other people internationally as well. Went to university where there's lots of people from different backgrounds, different countries. Going to the Army Reserves where you're dealing with people who, so for example, my soldiers, when I was a platoon commander in the reserve, I had a Pilates instructor, I had a teacher, I had a policeman, I had a manager at a nearby sort of oil industry sort of support company. I had so many people with loads of different backgrounds, as student engineers, anything you can imagine. So dealing with all these different people was, and I've learned the basics of that from the cadets. And then especially going to Sandhurst, I mean, the people that come through Sandhurst, it's so broad brush. You've got people in my platoon, for example, one person who went to Eton, went to Oxford, really highly educated, interesting guy. And at the other end of the spectrum, there was people from, state schools in Edinburgh that had a bit of a rough upbringing that had scraped the way through university and managed to get in. So there's this huge different spectrums at Sandhurst as well, and hopefully that will serve me well as well going into the regular army and dealing with soldiers and officers as well. So I think communications are pretty good. I think as well, like you actually get quite a lot of leadership training out of cadets. Not necessarily being a leader, but being in that environment where there is a bit of a hierarchy. And I swear down to this day, the most leadership sort of improvement and insight I've ever had has been on the receiving end of leadership, and particularly within the cadet force, because you can look at people above you and go, I want to be like that guy, or I want to do bits and bobs that she does, and I don't like the way he does this, and actually when I'm in charge, I'm going to do this differently, and I'm going to keep doing that because that's really good. And you just sort of amass all these different ways of doing things, different perspectives, and then from there you can kind of tailor the way you do stuff depending on who the crowd is and how they're going to react to it, and and I think that sort of emotional intelligence comes out of it as well, because if you spend that time with different people, you can sort of read people better and see what motivates them and how to sort of lead. So I think that's really essential. I don't know if I've written anything else down.
Yeah.
I think like the other thing as well, sorry, is like having that sort of foresight motivation. I think the cadets is a really good system in the star system. I know it's changed probably since I was in, but where you are, there's a clear track. You've got to do your 1-star shooting and your 1-star fieldcraft and your drill. And once you've done that, you can progress to the next level and you can do all this. And so actually breaking these up into little bite-sized chunks was such a life lesson for me, who, you know, I was pretty overwhelmed going to school and all the rest of it. I was really struggled with that sort of stuff. And even through university, I was like, oh, this is massive. But actually, having been through that system and realizing that actually you can break things down, and you can break things down to small tests and to even smaller bits, and, you know, just one stepping stone at a time until you figured out, right, this is how we're going to do it. I think being able to focus that, having that foresight and being able to focus that motivation, I think that's really something that people will, and that cadets will absolutely take away from the time in the cadet force. I think, yeah.
That's really good. Angus, just a quick one, it's kind of off the cuff. You're talking about being surrounded by really good leaders. Did you have someone that you looked up to in cadets, or was there a role model or anyone at all whenever you were in cadets?
Yeah, I think there was, you know, I was fortunate enough that when I joined, there was some really good, you know, cadets there that I did look up to, and I sort of got into that crowd quite early on, with the sort of tap competitions and all the rest of it. I remember Dave McDonald was who was a sort of senior cadet when I joined, and ended up being the RSM, and Fraser Hart as well, who was a bit of a senior cadet, senior than me, and went on to be RSM, and I sort of followed them, and Michael Farmer and all these individuals who were slightly ahead of me, and again had that thing of, I'd look at them and go, you know what, I really like the way they do that, and that's how I'm going to be. And actually, you know, I really don't like the way that we do this. So I'm going to, you know, if I ever get in that position, I'm going to make sure that I don't do that, or I mitigate that. So I'd say like the cadets were there. Obviously, you know, I think what's quite commonly overlooked as well is the cadet adults like yourselves. There's, you know, because the cadets are always getting pushed forward into these leadership positions, which is absolutely amazing. I think that perhaps you guys sometimes get a bit overlooked and stuff like that. And I must say, I didn't sort of look at the adults particularly and go, yeah, that's a really good leader sort of thing. I think it's absolutely role models, and you look at the cadet instructor, you think that's quite a cool role model. But I think with a bit of hindsight as well, seeing what you guys put into it, and the sort of sacrifice you guys do in your own time, and coming in and putting on this training, which enables everything else to happen, is really important as well. I think I didn't really realise that until I'd left cadets, and I'd actually started trying to plan any kind of training on my own, and I was like, this is insane. You know, I'm doing this with fully qualified soldiers. I don't know how on earth people plan to do this with cadets. You know, there's so much more risk and all the rest of it, but you still manage to put on like the sort of training. So I think in hindsight, looking at the cadet instructor, you think, wow, you know, actually you guys put in a fair shift.
No, I would agree. I don't think I appreciated it either until I became a CFAV. Yeah. You don't realise.
No.
Angus, both you and your mum have openly said that, you know, cadets isn't something that she would have recommended, or your parents didn't really want you to join cadets. Why do you think we should encourage children to join cadets now?
I just think it's one of those organisations that really gives people a huge plethora of opportunities. You know, I tried my hands at lots of things when I was at school. You know, from rock climbing to sort of mountain biking to, you know, various different sports, and nothing really clicked. Whereas in the cadets, there was so much going on that actually I could focus my energies in different places and stuff like that. And the cadets really give you that opportunity to do stuff like that. And not only that, but you also get quite a few qualifications out of it. I got various sort of BTECs and Duke of Edinburgh's awards. You know, and I don't think there's any other organisations out there, certainly youth organisations, that can put on such a plethora of stuff. You know, there's so much stuff to do and so many opportunities, and they're all, you know, come at a tiny cost. I mean, I can't even imagine how much it would have cost to go to Canada to do 6 weeks of the stuff that we were doing. It was obscene. I mean, the amount of bikes we went through was just ridiculous. Mainly because we kept crashing. But the point is that, you know, there's no other organisation out there that's funded as well, and that you know, the volunteers put in so much time and planning into. And so I think you've got a huge plethora. And alongside that, you also get the values and standards, which, you know, I've had rammed down my throat for the last sort of, you know, year at Sandhurst, so I would rattle them off. But, you know, they're actually really important. I don't think there's a lot of other places in society sort of these days, especially as a young person, where you're going to get that. You know, maybe the Scouts or something, but, you know, it's not to the same sort of standard as the Army has. And I think it's quite good to have that sort of cut-off, so to speak, in that, you know, the Army in general, the military in general, will take anyone. You know, we're open doors for everyone, as long as you buy into our values and standards, and you sort of live by them. I think that's really important, more sort of philosophically, if you want, for for sort of kids going through in a system where perhaps, especially secondary schools, which are so big, you maybe can't provide that kind of social, I don't know, way of thinking about things. I think the Army Cadets really plugs that gap, where you respect for others and all the rest of it comes in, and I think that's really important as well.
Okay, thanks for answering those, Angus. We're going to move on to ask you some questions that the cadets and CFAVs have asked us to ask you. So there's a few more than the ones you saw last night.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll ask the first one. It's from Cadet Jones, who's a cadet in Castletown Detachment, and he's asked, what was your best experience during your time in cadets?
So I'd say would probably be so one of them is Canada, obviously a really boring one. But I remember on like 18-day expedition, we spent, I think we were like 11 or 12 days in at the time. We stopped this epic little spot with canoes, tied up the canoes, set up the tents, and there was this little sort of grill tuck shop type thing at the side. I remember having this massive Canadian burger and a milkshake, and I was like, this is awesome, with like a crazy suntan, and having just canoed down the Yukon, and I was like, what, how many 14, I think it was 50, how many 15-year-olds get to do this?
Yeah.
I think as well, like probably being on some of the TAC competitions and leading them and stuff like that was a really good experience, and just having that little team that you're able to sort of train with and bond with, and you knew everyone on that team and how they did stuff and how they all worked, and working a team towards those objectives, that was a really fond memory.
Angus, you've kind of answered this in one of our last questions, but just if you just want to recap this one. This one is from Alana Logan, Stornoway Detachment, and she's asked, how did being part of the Army Cadet Force help you after you aged out?
Yeah, I'd say I think the main one coming would probably be communication, being able to chat to people and not being afraid, and also not being afraid to put myself forward for stuff, and just chucking my hand in the ring and saying let's go for it, and also failing at those things as well, because I think once it's an awful big thing to put yourself forward for failure, but once you've experienced it and you realise it's not that bad, and the worst that anyone's going to say is no, then you're like, well, you know what, I'll put myself forward for something else, and eventually something will stick and someone will pick me up and I'll be able to go. So I think that self-confidence to be able to put yourself forward for things, and if you fail, you fail as long as you learn, and that ability to communicate with other people and chat is, I think it's pretty important.
So the next question is from SSI Wells, our Elgin Detachment Commander, and he's asked, as a former Cadet RSM, is there any advice you would give to our new one? So we've just promoted RSM Tate from Ross Company.
All right, congratulations.
So hopefully he'll be watching this to get some advice.
God, I haven't followed it. Any advice? Just remember, just remember the things that you saw when you were a cadet, I'd say. People, you've been there for a few years type thing, and you get to that stage, it's brilliant. But remember what you went through to get there. Remember all the experiences you had and the examples of good and bad leadership you've had, and then apply those. And hopefully you can sort of be that best incarnation of that sort of leadership so far. And guess what? The person that's coming up behind you is going to be even better. So make sure you give them some decent examples to learn from and be part of. So I think that's that would be the top advice. Would be just don't forget all the experiences you've had and apply that to what you are. You're you're only there for a short time, and sooner or later you'll be timed out and someone else will come in. So make sure you're passing on all that information, that advice, and embodying it as well. No,
that's great advice. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. Thanks.
Good. Next one then, Angus, is from Colour Sergeant Liz Allen, Force Detachment Commander. You're talking about your best experiences. Have you got a favourite memory as a cadet?
I guess it's kind of the same thing, but just
one. I'd say probably that hamburger and that milkshake are going to be pretty hard to beat, I'll be honest. Especially
well, you're a foodie, we take it.
And rations are in a big way. No, I think I think that's probably up there. There's so many as well. All these little memories from all the different camps and places you've been to, and those really innocuous memories of just hanging out. I remember training in Dingwall Training Centre, every however many weekends, and just chatting nonsense in the rooms and sort of being around sort of your peer group and your pals and doing some quite fun stuff. And there's loads, absolutely loads.
I know it's quite hard to pinpoint one, isn't it? Okay, the next question is from Colour Sergeant Innes MacLeod, and he's asked, what was the hardest part of your army career so far, and what are you looking forward to in the future?
That's a tricky one. I think, I don't know, I've got a funny sort of love-hate relationship with the army, where I go through something horribly difficult and I think this is awful, and I get to the end of it and I don't know, it's like, as soon as you come back, like, that wasn't that bad. Yeah. But it was. I think I'd say the most current one to date was going through the regimental selection process at Sandhurst. So the way it works is you start Sandhurst, it's a pretty much effectively a year-long course. At the beginning, you look at all the regiments and corps across the British Army, and you sort of express what you're interested in, so whether that be the engineers or the military police or the infantry or the cavalry, whatever. And you go down, you put all these options down, so you're encouraged to express an interest as many as you want. And then effectively, the rest of Sandhurst until the sort of end of your intermediate term is an interview. I mean, you're constantly being looked at from all these regiments, and you have to cut down as well. So you generally cut down to 2, and then it gets pretty vicious. You're going through, and when I applied, there was I think there was around 20 something for about 4 spots in the parachute regiment. I know the Royal Regiment of Scotland, who else I applied to as well. There was huge amounts of people going for that, and in very limited spaces, and it's across the army. I mean, there's so many people trying to get spots at different regiments, and so that was really stressful for like the longest time, because you were worried that if you dropped the ball for a minute, you would potentially be cut from that regiment that you really wanted to go to, you felt an affinity to. And although it's pretty vicious, it does work out. Everyone generally goes to where they're meant to be, and you kind of 95% will realise that they get to the end of Sandhurst, go, yeah, right, this is my home. Which is great, but that was terrifying, and the interviews themselves were it was a really polite grilling for about 40 minutes, and I had both mine on the same day as well. So I sort of got up in the morning, had breakfast, had an hour of sort of shaking in my boots, and then got suited and booted, went down to my first interview, took a walk around the building, came back into another room half an hour later and had my next interview, and they were both completely different. So it was really hard to prep for both at the same time, and then spent the rest of the day sitting there thinking, I don't know if I've got any of these or not, and then getting results. So I think that's probably the worst part of my army career so far. That was pretty nerve-wracking, but very rewarding at the end of it, when you get your regiment and all the rest of it.
So our next couple of questions, we've got a few questions from Colour Sergeant Alistair Smith in Allness Detachment.
Someone you will remember well.
Yeah. The first one is, what's the best time in cadets that the adults never find out about?
Keep it PG.
That is tricky. We used to have a lot of to be honest, it wasn't in cadets, so it's not actually that cheeky of a story, but we used to have a lot of offline parties, which were quite good fun, where we'd get quite a lot of sort of cadet people, and have a bit of a party, which is quite good fun. No, I can't really think of anything else that's suitable.
That'll do. That's great.
That'll do. Yeah.
Would you mind coming back to help at cadet events and be a role model for the youth of today? Colour Sergeant Smith is also asking.
Yeah, I think coming back to cadets would be something I'd really like to do. I think it's maybe something I'd look at further down the line, and hopefully when I've sort of picked up some more skills, something I could bring back some stuff to cadets. But absolutely, I think it's I think when you realise how much you get out of it, and how much input it requires for that to happen, I think you feel a bit of a sort of duty to come back at some point and put something in, because I've got so much out of it. So absolutely, at some point in the future, yeah.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah. Tape now.
Cool. And the last one, Alistair's just saying, that you're a really nice young man, and it's been great to teach you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wonder how you forced him to say that.
That's his words.
His words, not ours.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to a quick fire round. So I'm not sure if you've seen this in your mum's interview, but we'll ask you 2 questions.
Yeah.
You just choose whichever answer you prefer, okay? Okay, skiing or snowboarding?
Skiing.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Ketchup or HP?
Ketchup.
Hey, truth or dare?
Dare.
Heels or flats?
Oh, flats.
That was quick. It took Lieutenant Colonel Reed a while to answer that one.
Did you? Oh, I've no doubt.
Sweets or crisps?
Crisp.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
TV or book?
Sorry?
TV or book?
Oh, I don't know. I've been reading a lot of books recently, so I'm gonna have to.
Barbie or Cindy?
I don't even know what that is.
Don't lie.
Dude, Barbie, that's really what I do.
Dancing or singing?
Don't know, it's pretty painful watching me do either, but I think dancing probably.
Favorite month, summer or winter?
Winter.
Fieldcraft or nav?
Neither. Probably nav.
No. Do you prefer gin or beer?
Depends on the weather.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
Chick flick or rom-com?
Rom-com.
Early morning or late night?
Early morning.
DVD or cinema?
Cinema.
Train or plane?
Plane.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Skydive or bungee jump?
Oh, skydive. Something for yourself.
I'd be worried if you didn't choose that answer.
Yeah.
Angus, thank you very much for letting us interview you. We like to finish off with maybe a wee message from you to all our viewers, seeing as we're getting famous now.
Oh, really?
But yeah, if you have any parting thoughts, that'd be great if you could share with our cadets and adult volunteers.
Just go for it. Like, if there's an opportunity there, reach out, and if you fail at it, then oh well, you try something else, and just
Great.
yeah.
Short and sweet, love it.
Yeah, exactly.